Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, your 2024-2025 Super Bowl champions, as they have defeated the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22 in Super Bowl 59. And today, we're going to really talk about how the Eagles built this championship team, and also talk a little bit about the game itself. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, the ultimate underdog story. He was benched in the national championship game at Alabama for Tua. He comes back the next year, leads Alabama in the SEC championship against Georgia, gets transferred to Oklahoma, has a good year there. He's a second-round pick. He's behind Carson Wentz. No one really expects much from him. And then he has a big 2022. He leads the team to the Super Bowl. But since then, 2023 was a rough year, and then even this year in the regular season was pretty inconsistent. And a lot of people just doubted Jalen Hurts, especially going into the playoffs. Can Jalen Hurts really lead this team to a Super Bowl? And he showed that he absolutely could. The last two games, Jalen Hurts was on time. He was accurate. He didn't make mistakes with the ball other than that one interception he had. But Jalen Hurts played the way he was supposed to, and he did what he needed to do, and he won. And that's the impressive thing, is this guy was never expected to be here at this point. It's really an incredible story of perseverance and resilience for Jalen Hurts to get here, especially after all he went through in college and being a second-round pick. It's a great story and a great job by Jalen Hurts. But, I also want to say, this roster's stacked. When I say stacked, I don't mean they have a couple great players. No, this team has no weaknesses on offense or defense. Look at the defensive line in the Super Bowl. Josh Sweat had 2.5 sacks. Milton Williams had 2 sacks. Milton Williams is your 5th best pass rusher. And he's capable of a game like that. And then you also got the 3 Georgia studs. Nolan Smith, really good player, second-year guy, only can get better. Jordan Davis, who's an absolute freak. He's 6'8", 360, 70 pounds. Dude's a menace. And then Jalen Carter, who's already turned into one of the best pass rushers in all of football in just his second year. And then they signed, for offseason, they signed Zach Bond at linebacker, who at the time was really a nothing burger. He spent 4 years in New Orleans, really not doing much. He was a okay, low-end starter guy. He goes to Philadelphia. Howie Roseman sees how he can use this talent, and he becomes an all-pro. And then in the draft, they draft 2 stud cornerbacks, 2 stud rookies, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, which was incredible value for both of those players, who have both turned out to be 2 of the best rookie cornerbacks in the NFL and are only ascending. And that's just the defense. And now let's just talk about the drafting. The last 4 years. And drafting is like the meat and potatoes of building an NFL franchise. Most GMs hit on some, you miss on some. The draft's a crapshoot. Let me tell you about these earlier picks the last 4 years of the Eagles. 2021, Devontae Smith was their first-round pick. Excellent player. Excellent number 2 receiver behind A.J. Brown. Landon Dickerson in the second round. He's an all-pro guard. And then Milton Williams in the third round, a very good piece on that pass rush. 2022, Jordan Davis, absolute beast out of Georgia. Cam Jurgens they drafted in the second round to replace the legendary Jason Kelce. Cam Jurgens stepped right in. He was a very good center for them, helping them win a Super Bowl, and was able to fill in very nicely as a young player. Go from guard, who was playing it last year, to center. And then they drafted Nakobe Dean. He wasn't available a lot in the playoffs, but he did show he's a decent number 2 linebacker behind Zach Bond. 2023, Jalen Carter, they got him at 9. He only dropped because he had some speeding issues, which, I mean, it's bad. But he dropped to number 9 in the draft because of that. Teams were very skeptical of taking him. The Eagles were like, yeah, we see the talent in Jalen Carter. They take Jalen Carter, and he's been one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And they take Nolan Smith as well, his Georgia teammate. He's been very good as well. And then 2024, this is after 2023 playoffs where there's a lot of questions about the Eagles after this. They started 10-1 that year. They lost 6 of their final 7, including that embarrassing wild card loss to the Buccaneers. That kind of looked like it might be the end of an era in Philadelphia. Jason Kelce retired. James Bradbury was completely washed in that game. The defense was horrendous. They were like bottom 5 in every category in 2023. In the secondary, Howie Roseman sees that, and Darius Slay's still a good player, but not quite the player he once was at this point. So Howie Roseman sees this and somehow is able to get the consensus number 1 corner in the draft, Quinyon Mitchell, at 22. He was not projected to be there. And then somehow in the second round, they're able to trade up and get Cooper DeJean, who no one expected to be in the second round. Everyone said he'd be a first-round pick. He falls the second round. The Eagles scoop him up, and they get 2 corners, and they both were immediate successes for this Eagles team. Just unbelievable foresight by Howie Roseman. I mean, they pretty much hit on everything since 2021. Add on to that, signing Saquon Barkley for only $13 million a year because the running back market was so diluted. He has a historic season, wins Offensive Player of the Year, breaks many records for this Eagles team. And then 2022, they trade for A.J. Brown, which was one of the first big moves he made to help develop Jalen Hurts, and that was the year they went to the Super Bowl. So just unbelievable team building by Howie Roseman. And all these guys they drafted in these last 4 years, all these guys were on rookie contracts. Now, eventually they're going to have to lose some of these guys, but right now, all these guys are on rookie contracts. And that just is incredible value to this Eagles team. And what's even more incredible, I would say, is like, it felt like, like 2022 for a while, it felt like the team 2 years ago was the peak of the Eagles. The team that lost to Kansas City, especially after 2023, which was a very disappointing season for the Eagles. You had Jason Kelce, Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, multiple very important key players, star players for this team that were on their way to retirement or on their way out of the team or the league itself. And the Eagles just rebuilt the team. They drafted ahead of hand. They prepared ahead of hand. Like they drafted for a year early. Like we didn't draft like a guy when Jason Kelce was still on the roster when they drafted Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, because the Eagles were thinking ahead. That you don't want to rush a guy in first year. So once Jason Kelce retires, we're going to have these guys ready to go. And that's exactly what happened. They lose Javon Hargrave in free agency, their best interior rusher, no problem. We were going to draft Jalen Carter and get all these, and Jordan Davis. All these guys are going to step up. Oh yeah, we also signed Saquon too. I mean, overall, just elite team building by Howie Roseman. And there is no weakness on this team. Like, there's usually a flaw in all these teams. Like, even teams that win the Super Bowl, like Kansas City last year, I mean, they weren't a great Super Bowl champion. They were very flawed. Their receivers sucked. They kind of had just Mahomes carry them last year. But this team is a machine top to bottom. I mean, they can beat you really in any way. And Nick Sirianni, you know, you could say he's definitely lucky to have this roster, and that's definitely true. Nick Sirianni has probably the easiest coaching job of any coach. However, you do got to credit him for hiring the coordinators in place that really helped turn things around and not being stubborn to his guys, Brian Johnson, and the Eagles' defense was so bad. I don't even remember their defensive coordinator was. Matt Patricia was calling plays for a little bit. It was a disaster. So they fire those guys and they bring in Kellen Moore, who did a really good job with the offense. Jalen Hurts was more comfortable in this offense. And then they bring in Vic Fangio for the defense, who's one of the best defensive coordinators of all time. And although he's older, he clearly helped improve this Eagles defense and was a big reason for a lot of the improvement year to year from this defense. So just overall, the Eagles built a team the way you're supposed to build a team. And I understand a lot of people don't like the Eagles because of their fan base, which I get. They can have some annoying fans. But the one thing you cannot take away from the Eagles is that the Philadelphia Eagles they know how to build a team that is sustainable. They look ahead when they see veteran players. They're like, we know what our future needs are going to be. So and then they give those guys a year to develop behind the veterans, and those guys come in and they're immediate impact players when they have to step up. For the game itself, I mean, Kansas City, they were just outmatched. I mean, I predicted the Chiefs to win because I just thought the Chiefs are going to find a way. They beat the Niners last year, which had similar conversations, but the difference between that Niners team and this year's Eagles team is like the Niners had 5, 6, 7 mega superstars. They had a lot of holes. This Eagles team doesn't have holes. That's like the huge difference between this year's Eagles team and that 49ers team last year. It was a great team, but this Eagles team's clearly a level above that 49ers team they beat. And the Eagles came prepared. Mahomes did not play well. I mean, they blitzed him all the time. Credit to Vic Fangio for his game plan on Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs just looked lost the whole night. And it was pure domination. The final score won't even say it, but the Eagles just dominated the game. The Chiefs had like 30 yards in the first half. This was a one-sided affair. This game felt over by halftime. And the Eagles pretty easily won this game and pretty easily won the Super Bowl. And that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching Spence Sports Network show. I'm your host, Spence Kling, and we'll see you next week.